Hi, Serena.
Hey there.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Well, it looks like Peggy is here as an attendee. Carolyn, can you make her a panelist? Oh, there she is.
Right. All right. So shall we go ahead and begin then? It looks like we have, so just welcome everybody. I'm so glad you guys are here on this rainy day. It feels pretty dark out there, at least at my house. It's been raining all day long, but it's good. So, so I'm just gonna see who we have here. Looks like we've got Kate, hello. In terms of members, Lonnie, Leah, Peggy, and so we're missing Kenan, Nancy, and Michael then. So,
And Emily.
and Emily. And I bet Emily will be with us soon because I just got an email from her and she didn't say anything about not attending. So hi Emily.
Hi.
All right, nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
All right, welcome. All right, great. Well, we have a quorum and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with the Albemarle County Continuity of Government Ordinance, and the meeting is being recorded. All right, so that is our disclosure. And I also want to welcome any guests that we have. We have Serena, let me, Gruera. Gruya.
Like I
All
grew
right.
you some plants.
Gruya, that's good. I can remember that. Thank you. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to give you a chance to talk about the website and how we can communicate our message. So really happy that you are here with us today. And also thank you as always to Carolyn for hosting our meeting. And do we have any other, do we have a guest? How to see.
Looks like Rod and Maggie are here.
Rod, thank you for helping me there.
Yeah, and Margaret.
All right, and Margaret. So welcome to our guest, Rod and Maggie, and thank you, Margaret, for being here as well. And Rod and Maggie, please, we welcome your feedback and contributions. So please let us know, or if you'd like to join the meeting as a panelist, we can make that happen as well. So thank you so much for being here today. So we're going to go ahead and look at the agenda. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at that, to go ahead and review and approve it.
Looks good to me.
Looks good to you?
Yep.
All right. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at it? Oh, thank you, Kim. All right. Yay. So here is our agenda. And can I get somebody to move to approve this agenda?
I'll move to approve.
All right. And a second?
I'll second.
Or third.
And a third. Okay, great. So let's see, do we have approval by everybody? That would be Kate. Are you? I'm just going to go down. Yes. Kate, Emily, we heard from you. Leah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think we heard from everybody.
Am I official now? Do you know? Can I even vote?
That's right.
I don't know.
Haven't heard anything, have you?
No.
Yeah, I checked the board minutes and I did not see any new appointees. So I think it just takes a little while.
Okay.
I do have a question regarding that. So I got a note about reappointment. And in the past, all we had to do is say to our staff representative that we want to be reappointed, and they would carry that forward. Do we have to reapply all over again? Or is that, again, sufficient?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. Nancy just did it, so she would know, but I can also find out for you, Lonnie.
I can tell you, Lonnie, with ACE, the ACE committee, then you just say that you're interested in continuing, and they're like, okay, you don't have to reapply. Well, I take it back. I said I did that, and then somebody sent me a message and said I had to go to that website and you just fill out like 4 or 5 little places. Anyway, it's really simple, really easy. But I did have to be approved, I think, for the renewal.
Is that helpful, Lonnie?
Probably didn't help.
I
Sorry.
don't have to do the website thing. I don't know if it's gotten simpler than it was in the past, but before it was like a big long thing of like, I think they asked for like a resume and all sorts of other things, which I could do if I have to, but if I don't have to, I'd rather not do it.
The
Margaret has
resume
her
is
hand
optional
up.
no matter what.
Margaret has a comment, so I think she might be able to answer your question.
Yeah, I can tell you that the policy used to be that you just had to say you wanted to be reappointed, and they've changed it so that you do need to reapply each time. I don't know if the application process is simpler than it used to be, but reapplication is needed.
Okay.
Thank you,
That
Margaret.
answers my question.
Thank you, Lonnie. Stay with us, okay? Thank you. All right, and then we have the minutes for our August meeting, and hopefully everybody got a chance to take a look at those great minutes that Kim provided for us. And is there any comment or anything anybody wanted to say about the minutes? And if not, if I could get a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move, Peggy.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Emily. And Lonnie, do you approve that?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Wasn't here.
That's right. But did you get a chance to see them? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you were there or not?
But I can't approve that was what was actually said at the meeting or not, and whether those
Oh.
minutes are accurate, because I wasn't there.
Gotcha. All right. And let's see. I'm losing track. Did we hear from Kate?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you very much, Kate. And did we hear from everybody? I think so. All right. Does that mean we can go ahead and approve the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, everybody. So we are going to move on to our business, and we have Serena here. I hope that everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the website. And it's great to have Serena because she can give us a little bit of feedback about, the setup. And I know one of the things that I was concerned about is like we had so much material from our old webpage, and just how can we, if somebody's interested in landowner stewardship, how can they easily access that information again? And so, Serena, can I hand it over to you, and you can just give us a little bit of background? Is that the best way to handle it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with the county last September, and the website project was well underway at that point. It was a huge project, so it did take a long time to complete. But the driving force behind the website, in addition to the fact that the old website was about 20 years old, it was like Web 1.0. The driving force was to create a user experience that would allow easy navigation, ease to find information. So really driven through the homepage search box. So one of the first things you see is this huge search box on the front page of the website. And the idea is that most users are so comfortable with Google search that they'll just go to the front page of the website, type in a couple words, and then hopefully be brought to the page that they're with the information that they're most looking for. So that is kind of the backbone of the structure of the site. So there's a ton of content on the website. We went from, I think, 20,000 pages though, down to 500 pages. So that was a big deal. Content wasn't being archived in the former site. It was being used as an internal like staff resource, which is not the purpose for an external facing website. So a lot of changes were manifested in this new website. One of which I know is the amount of content that you all had provided was kind of put to the side for a minute. So my experience so far with content that was created by a committee or commission is that that content is valuable and we need to find a good place for it, but it won't live on the board or commission's site page itself. It is just countywide content. So we really need to find what the content is, who's going to manage it on staff, who will manage that, and then what's the intention for that content. So how can we best create that content and maintain it so that the people that you're interested in reaching are able to find it and make good use of that information. So I want to maybe allay the fear that there's no place for this content, because there certainly is. We just need to be really intentional with it and make sure that it can live longer than a year or so. Does that help?
That was helpful for me. Does anybody else have any questions about just how the webpage is set up?
I have a question. One of the things I like to do is, particularly when I'm researching policy, is go back and search for old minutes of like board of supervisor meetings or times when something has been discussed on the board of supervisors. And since the website changed, I've had trouble finding those. Is there some other way that I can find archived board meeting minutes? Is there a way to search for those?
Yes, so there is a transition moment for that type of, so you would be considered a super user, a professional citizen who's really going and diving in deep to the website. We have archived the entirety of the previous iteration of the website. So that content is not lost, but right now the clerks are working to archive all the minutes and that huge archive back, and so we can kind of backload it into the new website. So what you'll see is, and I guess the Board of Supervisors archive is a little bit different from the boards and commissions pages. So the boards and commissions and committees have their own structure. They'll have a folder that will have the pre-2020 archive, and that's all been kind of zipped up and probably not like the easiest to navigate, but it's there and searchable. But going forward, so say the meeting minutes from this meeting will be in a folder that's specific to September 2020. So going forward, it will be a lot easier to find what you need. But going backward will require a little bit of digging, kind of like it did before anyway.
So for Board of Supervisor minutes, because that's usually what I'm concerned about, that and Planning Commission, will they be entered into the search for Google? Will they be indexed?
I'm not sure how far back there, because that would require probably entering keywords into each of those individual documents and associating information with those on a individual file by file basis.
If they're in the index, if they're searchable, if they're set up to be searched by Google, then Google will spider them and then.
Right. So over time, that will kind of take effect. Like if you go today to search Google, the spiders haven't gone that far back into the kind of where they're housed now.
Okay.
If you all have questions for Planning Commission, you can email me and I have access to all the archive and I will gladly email you those minutes anytime you need them. If you know when the meeting was, just let me know, email me directly and I can send that to you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they don't. I mean, a lot of it's, like researching environmental policy, like if I wanted to find out, at some point we'll be discussing stream buffers, and there's been some critical moments where stream buffer policy has changed, where people have discussed stream buffers, and I won't know the exact date when that occurred. It's nice to just be able to do a search to find out when they were discussing stream buffers.
So Lonnie, I'll look into that with our IT department, who would be on the technical side, and then I'll get in touch with Kim, and she can relay that back to you guys.
Okay.
I have a question about the website in general. I think it looks great from the way I went in to look at it, related to the Natural Heritage Committee and some other things. But when I have gone into search on my own, just typed in Google, like you said, we like to Google, typed in something for Google, like Albemarle GIS maps or property maps or whatever, I over and over get this error message where I can't get to anything hardly up albemarle.org if I do it through a Google search. I just assumed y'all knew about it. So I guess I need to start paying attention to what exactly I'm searching to let you know.
What would be really helpful is if you could, if you're willing, kind of detail the steps that you're going through, just so we can recreate that and then figure out what is behind that problem. I do know that over time, the search function will become more and more kind of sensitive to what users are looking for. So I won't call it artificial intelligence by any means, but it'll get smarter as time goes on. Right. But it would be really helpful if you could kind of recreate that and then send it to me or to Kim, so we could tell the web people that that's happening.
Okay, what's your email address?
I'll put it in the chat. It's sgruia at Albemarle.
At albemarle.org. Okay.
I have a similar access issue, and I'll just recreate that and send you guys a screenshot related to the GIS site.
Yeah, screenshots are awesome. That'd be great. So let me make sure I spelled it right. Okay.
Serena, I had just a question about some of those big blocks, the landing pages. There's one that's the heading is living here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's school, transit, trash, recycling, water. And do you foresee that there would ever be a possibility where you could have one land stewardship? Or
yeah, I think absolutely, I'll say that. and also there's go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to think if I didn't go through the search engine, just looking at some general information, what does the county have to offer? It seems like sort of a logical place, because I see there's a couple different ways of coming at it. But to me, the most intuitive would be that list, living here, where it seems like that would fit in.
Yeah, and like you said, ultimately the information is going to have one kind of place, but we can get to it from a lot of different entry points. So, and that will be assisted by the analytics. When we're seeing, a lot of people are going to schools via the living here, then we'll know that's a good entry. So, but what we would do is just try a bunch of different ways that we could get people to the content. So both in the navigation, within the structure, but also in the living here, or whatever y'all felt was appropriate. we could test a few things out to make sure that people are finding the information.
So if we did just, is it possible to have a page that would be like landowner stewardship that could just have a series like FAQs underneath it, or where we would have some links? Because for example, if you wanted to get information about the ACE program, you know, it just seems sort of buried under, like I would have never I don't know. It wasn't until Kim said, oh, this is where you find natural resources and land conservation is going to planning and codes.
Sure. And that's where it's housed in the department. But if you have recommendations, if there are certain areas of content that you cannot find, and you want to elevate the opportunity for people to find, then I would want to know what those pages are that you want people to be able to find. And we would create a strategy that kind of elevates it, and maybe even attach more keywords. Like, not because the site's so new, not all of the pages have the keywords that you might be looking for. So the Google search isn't as effective as it hopefully will be going forward.
Yeah.
So,
and perhaps you could even send some advice as to what is the right keyword, whether, you know, maybe it's not biodiversity, maybe it's land stewardship, like really knowing what the keyword is that people can relate to.
Yeah, and I would rely on you and your all's expertise on what those words are, because I might think, you know, there's trash, there's garbage, right? So so that's we can attach multiple keywords to one kind of concept to catch a lot of different people. Mm-hmm.
And one other thing, when I was just looking at facilities and environmental services, you know, you have environmental stewardship, and then there's water resource protection, climate protection, recycling. And then at the very bottom, there's a link to the SWAC. And I'm wondering, like, maybe, you know, if there's a place for the NHC to, you know, kind of link back through there, because it's sort of a logical place that you could kind of make that circular push back to the NHC.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even though they're kind of, the liaisons are in different departments, that there's such crossover with the content. So yeah, and I think Kim and I are also trying to just figure out what that crossover is, because I think ideally we kind of flatten the organization so people can feel like the collaboration's happening and effective work can be done outside of these silos that are kind of false, right? And just traditional. So yes, all the recommendations. We would love that.
So it sounds like we just need to put our heads together and give you some feedback on that.
Yeah, that would be great.
So I wonder if there's could be a place, particularly under water resource protection, for governmental agencies that work closely with Albemarle County, like the Rivanna River Basin Commission, the Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District, because those are partner agencies that include county officials that you know, or that work closely with county officials on things like water resources. It'd be nice to have links back to those.
Absolutely. And one caveat I'm going to make is that we don't want to duplicate content. So any content that you might find on those pages, we would want to just link to, right? We don't want to kind of own all the content because, you know, if data is changing on one site and we're not paying attention to it, we want to make sure that people have the most current and updated information. So yes, linking out to those organizations and bodies is absolutely what we want to do.
Oh, I know in a past interest of this committee has been making people aware of incentive programs that are out there. And I know that there is a pretty comprehensive list of incentive programs on the Soil and Water Conservation District page. So, for example, under water resource protection, you know, I see there's different sections like water pollution emergency, drainage issue, question. You could see something about what can I do to, you know, what can I help to improve water quality or something like that, and then a link that goes to the conservation district for information about incentive programs or something like that.
Yeah, so I think a great strategy would be to kind of create tiers of information. So what are your top priorities and how can you support that with information? And we have a lot of opportunities with this new website to have like rotating slideshows or call outs that really there might be like a seasonal or I don't know, a thing that's really at the fore of importance for this, 4-month period or something like that. So if you could have a content calendar that it would help me to say, okay, well, we should send a newsletter out about this incentive. So thinking about both the calendar year, but also the information that you have and what your priorities are in terms of, what you want people to see and learn and act on, really. That's what we want too, is just a way for people to engage the information and learn, but also then like, what do you want them to do with that information?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, I think we could work on, maybe something under the NHC site if that's appropriate, but so definitely a list of conservation partners and why people might want to go there and check out those partner organizations. I think we wouldn't want to include any non-governmental agencies because then you get into some weirdness, but I think definitely for any of the local governmental organizations, including, I believe, the, I know Rod is on here. Why's my name blanking on the full acronym of invasive species group, the Blue Ridge
Prism.
I mean, I think they do have a official governmental role, so I think something like that might be a good thing to include as well.
Yeah, and that the PRISM is linked under the native plants. Like if you follow that all the way through, there's some resources there. So I think that our task next is to get together and so that we can make some good recommendations for the website.
Yeah, I have a question about that though. It sounded like all of our old material has been archived somewhere. And I mean, I think it's a great idea for us to have to review that material anyway. I think we had sort of thought that some of it should have been reviewed and thought about and organized, but how do we get access to that if we're in the process of like sort of trying to think about these, like you said, tiers of info and how to reorganize our thoughts? It seems like it would be nice to have access to the archives to have a starting point for some of that discussion.
So Kim has access to the archives and she can share that content. I think it's a public access, I believe. So you can get it that way. Something that might be helpful as well is we have a style guide for the web. So writing for the web, and because, we don't want people, it's just not good practice for users to have to scroll and scroll and scroll down pages. Particularly, we know that a lot of folks are on mobile devices now. So anyway, that style guide might be useful to you all to kind of think about like what our parameters are for what actually does go up on the website. And so I can send that to Kim as well.
That sounds great.
It gets nitty gritty like PM with a space or not that you don't have to worry about.
Sarita, would it be helpful to you? So one of the things that Christine was talking about and that we talked about earlier is just how these kind of links are sort of missing. So, for example, from the Natural Heritage Committee page to the Natural Resources page, or if you typed in environment, you would just go to environmental services and you'd never see Natural Resources Program or the Natural Heritage Committee. So what's the best way to, I guess, provide that, just to provide you with recommendations for making those linkages? And is it possible, because I know you don't want to have a lot of content on the committee page, but is it possible to have, links on the page that direct folks to other parts of the website?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
so on the committee page itself, we also have the opportunity in the sidebar, there's like a document center. So if you have specific resources like PDF downloads, or even like your top 5 links for people to kind of check out information, there's opportunities there. I don't want to say that we can't put stuff on the main page of the committee, but we do want to keep pages to like a certain length of screens. But so any recommendations you have would be great to have any keywords that you would associate with that content. So it's not me thinking of what people might associate with you guys being the experts, thinking of the appropriate keywords to use.
So if we provide you some keywords, you'll also update the meta tags on the page so it'll be found by Google when people search for those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's easy to adjust if you see a page, if you think of keywords that you want to retroactively place on a page because you're not finding it, I can do that as well.
Christine, you're muted.
So yeah, we have some work to do then to go ahead and pull that together. But I want to also, thank you for that. And then also, do you mind talking a little bit about social media? And, Serena, you have given me some great tips just about like how to use some of that social media and to create like some post, so to speak. But perhaps you could just take a minute to share with the rest of the group.
Sure. So my office, Kate, we have a social media person, and she's developed some good strategies around how we approach social media. We have access to the Twitter, Facebook. We're kind of looking at making our YouTube channel a little bit more active. And so those are kind of the channels, and we have Instagram as well. And what we like to do, and we also have the email newsletter, which I'm sure you all have seen. So best practice is to, if we have a message, whether it be an event or a call to action, we'd like to kind of have it broadcast across the different platforms to reach as many people as we possibly can, but also to reinforce that messaging. So if you had a particular campaign to think about, you want our community to do X, Y, or Z, thinking about it in terms of a call to action. So you're sharing information with folks, but you also we want to be able to activate our community to do, to do different things. So it's not necessarily just about here's a cool fact. It's here's a cool fact and here's what you can do with that information. And then I guess another aspect of that is asking you all or friends and colleagues who are on social media to become ambassadors for that messaging, so that so it goes beyond the Albemarle County kind of network and it goes into different places so that more eyes can get on that information, because it does take a lot of time to think about creating a campaign. And so we want it to be valuable and accessible to a lot of different folks. And that happens because you all take the charge and keep going with it.
And one thing that was so useful that you shared with me in another meeting, just this idea that you have some creative genius there that can help take our message and turn it into, do your magic with it. So we don't have it to have the final product to hand over to you.
Yeah, and that's another part of the website and why we have a style guide is so that there's kind of a unified voice, so that it doesn't sound like each department is doing something different. It's all coming from the county, the local government. So that's not only does that have to do with like authority and trust, but it's also it's about us being professional and being advocating for our community and being again like a trusty source of information, which is important right now in general always.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have a comment. I just want to thank you all for all the pieces you're putting into this. That cohesive style guide, working to make things make sense to people, the accessibility of information, regardless of the natural heritage or other. That's just, I appreciate you all working so hard to make that a reality for the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would have been nice if you could screen share the page so you can click around on it. I mean, I'm looking at it on my phone here and I just have this little laptop and I'm just,
Oh, the website itself?
Yeah, while we've been talking. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is nice. I haven't tried to look at it on a phone, but I've definitely pulled it up on my laptop, and I've spent some time just kind of playing around and trying various searches and looking at the
I
organization.
mean, while we've been going over this stuff, you could have been clicking around and showing us stuff.
Oh, I can share it now if it's still helpful. Do you want me to share it?
It's not too late, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have looked down my, but I can't do both. I don't think. I'm looking at everybody on the screen, so I can't look at it. I mean, it looks really nice. Yeah.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the Natural Heritage Committee page, and right now, so there have been opportunities to fix some bugs. You know, some of the links were broken, and there's nothing, I don't think, yet in the archives. And so we have a place within community development where we are logging basically things that are missing from the website or that need to be filled in. And so I'm working on that for this, but at least all the links should be working now. And so here, I guess on this sidebar is where you were saying, Serena, where we could have maybe under resources, or maybe it would be its own thing where we could have a few key documents or links that we want to include. Is that right?
I wondered about the BAP. I mean, the Biodiversity Action Plan is something that, you know, is strongly linked to our committee. But when I did a search, it wasn't even the first several items that came up in the search. And I understand that it's going to take a while for the important things to sort of float to the top. But yeah, it took, you know, I had to go a ways down before I could find one. And then the title of it was, I mean, it came up with biodiversity, a search, but it was, you know, it was listed as like BAP, I forget it, you know, something. Yeah. And so it may not have been obvious to somebody who might be interested in that, but not know what it was called or how to search for it.
Right.
Yeah, and that goes back to they were called content migrators, and that was the vendor who created the website. So the teams uploaded, you know, batch uploaded all those PDFs and documents that had been on the former site, and then the content migrators kind of put it into these folders. So now staff is having to go back and attach keywords and refine the file names, because there's just, with the old site, file naming was so different. It was very traditional, I guess, like the old way, where you had to have no spacing, and you had to have underscores between, and really complicated and not friendly for users to understand what a file name was, even what you were getting when you clicked on it. So so each of those, like, we have to go one by one to each of those documents to make them a little bit more accessible, which takes time. But if you have, again, with your recommendations, the priorities could shift if you had certain documents that you thought were really important to get to right away.
Right. And so Emily, just so you know, and everyone else, that the Biodiversity Action Plan in particular is on my radar, and that's the #1 thing that I've added to our priority list within community development from my perspective, because I really want that to be accessible. And you can also, so for the Natural Heritage Committee, you get to under boards and commissions. And then, as Christine said, under planning and codes is the natural resources and land conservation tab. And that is where, if you open it out, there is a link to the BAP, but it's really buried, and it doesn't have like the maps and the appendices and all that. So I am working on, you know, getting that in there, or having a place where it can be hopefully in the Natural Heritage Committee page and here as well, and also accessible through the search bar.
In regards to what y'all are saying about the BAP, I also, like Peggy, while we were talking early on, I put in Biodiversity Action Plan on the county website. And before that comes up, actually action memos related to the plan come up. And that sounds like things that you were saying, Serena, that we wouldn't even want on the website, that it would be archived. like 2018 Action Meadows presentation of the plan, informal presentation about it, work session information. Anyway, you get to other stuff that seems pretty irrelevant before you get to the plan. So just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
And Serena, does that mean, like, we're bringing these things up, but would you also like us to put it in an email? Like, what's the best way to like alert you to help make these changes?
Yeah, well, I think so. There's kind of two things happening. One is kind of taking a look at the current website and issues that we're finding with, finding information. So that could be one kind of spreadsheet recommendations for, we need the biodiversity action plan document to be the top of the list. That's like kind of one bucket. And then the other is new web content, right? And that's your recommendations for the prioritization of resources that you all would like to see on the new website. So I think that's kind of two different things, but there's ties between the two.
And do you recommend like coming up with some FAQs? Is that like the best way do you recommend that way of getting that information out to people, like anticipating what the questions might be ahead of time?
Yeah, I think FAQs are great within, I guess I'll say reason, but that's so subjective. For me to have an understanding of what would be an appropriate FAQ item, we want it to relate to what the other content is, and figuring out a strategy for all of the content. And then really truly pulling the FAQs that are, the pressing questions to the top.
Yeah.
So Christine, I have a suggestion. I think we should start with create a Google Doc where we can all collaboratively add some of our suggestions about what we'd like to see.
Yeah.
So that then we're all not submitting separate different ideas to the web team. We can compile them into one comprehensive list of the ideas that we'd like to submit.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that'd be helpful too, Lonnie, just because all of us might choose to go search for biodiversity action plan. And if you see that somebody's already made a comment, if you read that list before you go out and do your own searches, then you'll kind of not be retreading ground that somebody else has already done.
I haven't looked deeply for it, but also the biodiversity work group, even though it's not a current committee, their documents are extremely relevant to our committee because they laid all the foundation for what we do. So we want to make sure that at least our committee still has access to all those original documents, because those had all the important things like lists of rare species in the county, the original lists of the sites for conservation and their descriptions and so forth.
And Kim's got that, right? She's got all the archived material, and she can give us that link, I believe.
I do have it, but I agree with you that those are key documents we should add to the list, and they're also they are on the Google Drive as well. So you all have access through the Google Drive, which is, like Serena said, that should be more of a place probably where we're sharing documents among us rather than the website. But I also agree they should be on the website too.
So one, I will say you should take a look at the native plants page. I think that is probably, it's content that you probably have crossover with, but also the way that is displayed, I can share my screen real quick if you want.
Yeah.
The way that content is displayed, let's see, let me know if I'm sharing, is, it is a lot of content, but you can click to show or hide all of that. And so this is another kind of tactic you can take. There's a lot here. You also don't want to make sure we're not duplicating content, but this is a great way to have a lot of content, but then also make the page, accessible so that people don't feel overwhelmed by what they get when they first get to a page.
Yeah, I like that. And, even to be able to link from our page, like to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because this is a good example of something that's in facilities and environmental services, but it's directly related to the goals of the BAP and this committee. So it would be something that we definitely want to be linked to.
And so if you find that there are native plant resources that you would like to see, I would say we should continue to add to those pages and build that resource instead of starting another resource.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, this has been really helpful, and we now have a job to do. And Lonnie, thanks for that suggestion. So we can compile our suggestions in a Google Doc and then get those to you. So.
All right, so what I'll do, Lonnie, I'll go and get some more guidance on the archive, and I'll send that to Kim as well as the style guide for you all. And just invite me back if you want for me to come back another time. But also I'll just work with Kim on next steps.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
yeah, you're
really
welcome.
excited to be part of the new website and having you there to help guide us to
awesome.
Get our message out there.
Cool. Anything else for me before I go?
Thank you for coming, Serena.
All right, no problem.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, great. So I'll go ahead and start a Google Doc and share it with you guys. And maybe we could think of, just the search engine, I'll think of some key categories to put in there, and then we can all give some feedback on that. But I think it's pretty exciting to think about the possibilities of what sort of content we can put on there. And I'm really excited about like taking advantage of the social media. And on my to-do list is I'm planning on sending some information that relates to bears and trash, which sort of, it intersects my two committees that I'm on. So I get, double bang for the buck there. But are there any other thoughts about the website or the social media before we move on?
I think the social media presents an interesting opportunity. I mean, we do have some sites where we could even do something like a YouTube video, like a video tour, because a lot of these places, they're not on anyone's radar, and so people don't understand why we want to protect these places. Might be an interesting thing.
Oh, I love that idea, Lonnie. Like there's some of those key ecosystems that we talk about in the BAP. It might be fun to actually create a little video to help people understand why they're special. That's a cool idea. I love that. All right. As we're going to move on, and so thanks to Peggy getting us connected with the Monticello Bird Club, and Kim has already got a presentation, and I don't know if I've taken a look at it, but maybe there's things that could be added to it. But it's a nice kind of solid overview of our goals and an overview of the BAP as well. So that is, I think that is on the calendar for early spring of 2021. Good. So that's exciting. And also just to think about other organizations that we might move forward and try to do presentations with. So that's exciting to move forward on that. And then I was excited about, reaching out to plant nurseries. So I went over to Snow's and I talked to the manager there, and he was really open to, in the spring, just setting up a table and talking to people and encouraging them and answering questions about planting natives. And also it would give an opportunity to give a little bit of advertise what the committee does as well. So I reached out to him and just wondering if anybody else has their favorite nursery and might be willing to do the same thing. But
Well,
I wanted
you know,
to report to you about that.
Monticello's having 2 open houses for the public. Since we can't have people out at the nursery this year, we're having 2 sales, or it's in October, weekend in October. And you know, I go there and help out, and I'm always talking about native plants and everything and stuff. But maybe I could do something a little more formal about, you know, material I could share. I guess I'm just usually talking one-on-one to people, but is that what you're doing at Snows? Just kind of being there to talk to people as they wander up or something? It's
Yeah.
not like a formal presentation.
No.
Yeah. You guys might be interested in this sale. They had one last Saturday, and then the next one is going to be October. The weekend of the 17th and 18th, and I think that's it. Yeah, and you have to kind of pick a time to go there, but it should be nice. They'll be selling a lot of native plants as well as regular plants, but at on a sale prices, you know, like 40% off, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I mean, Monticello is the #1 recommended source for native plants in our area, because they do a lot of local propagation, and you know, and they have a lot of even some things that are often very hard to find in terms of native plants. The Wintergreen Nature Foundation is another really great organization. I still think I'd love to see Monticello and the Wintergreen Nature Foundation cross-pollinate to share plants back and forth. You could really get some interesting stuff out there.
great suggestion. Oh, another thing too is I don't know if any of you watch Virginia Homegrown, but the next episode, Devin Floyd is going to be featured.
Oh, wow.
Keith Nevison is a co-host now, you know, for some of the programming, and he's the manager at the Tufton Farm. And so he interviewed Devin, and so the show is always the last Tuesday of the month, so it would be, I guess, next week or the 29th. So mark your calendars. It's on at 8 o'clock on the Richmond PBS station, but you can watch it on your on Facebook. Yeah, it's live streamed. So,
yeah. The other suggestion, that's great, Lee. The other thing I would recommend too is that there is the Piedmont Native Plants campaign, now rebranded the Northern Piedmont Native Plants campaign. Still ambivalent about that, but Cecilia with PEC is the person that's the current chair of that. And you know, if we're doing an outreach to nurseries or we're sort of planning something, we might want to partner with Celia and with that campaign, since that's what they're all about, is promoting native plants, particularly through nurseries. So it'd be good to have like a coordinated effort.
I bet they have some print materials as well.
yeah, that's a good idea too.
I also just want to mention Hummingbird Hill for Union. We bought a whole bunch of items earlier this spring from them, and they've always, they're very close to us. So I find them to be a wonderful resource, and certainly what we found there has been great fun to watch in our own gardens. So
You have to make an appointment. It's hard to get there now. We were trying to go recently and weren't able to get in, but yeah, supposedly it's fantastic. Yeah.
we did a, buy over the phone, come to the tree and pick it up and drop off your check.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Thanks for all those suggestions. And yeah, I think I'm going to try to make it over to Monticello. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Look it up. We're also doing home delivery to people too. I mean, they have a huge inventory at the nursery, obviously, and Monticello just been limited guests are allowed to come now. Only 600 a day, and so they have a lot of plants. So I think they'd like to unload a bunch of stuff. So look it up on the website.
So does Monticello, will they do wholesale for any? Because it's a question that I've gotten from landscape architects who have like a large amount of plants to install. I mean, are there ever any opportunities where, if someone was to purchase a large amount of plants, they would offer like a discount for someone like a landscape architect?
I would contact Keith about that. I mean, we've done that, on a case-by-case basis, it's not something that's advertised, but especially this year, I think they'd love to wholesale some plants to people, but you know how to, Keith Nevison is the direct, or you contact me and I'll put you in contact with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Keith. He's great. And I think he's been very helpful
And he is very interested in, propagating from native genomes and that sort of thing. So yeah.
All right. All right, thanks you guys. I'm gonna move on to the important sites update, if everybody's okay with that. And I know that Peggy had gone out with Nancy, right?
Right.
And also Tim was there and Christian.
Right. And what's his name? Dan Mahone.
Dan Mahone.
Yes. And I was there for about an hour and a half. It was a really hot day. And we just walked around. The part I was involved with, I had to leave, I guess around 10:30 or so, but we just walked through the woodlands there right near the house, and it's just incredible. I mean, I've never been out to that location anyway. I've always just come in from the other direction. So
this is Biscuit Run for those of you who aren't.
There's a house. It's called Biscuit Run. I mean, I don't really know that much about it, but anyway. So it had. I took some pictures, and I can share them. I can put them up for us if you like. But I mean, there's a big stand of the pink lady slipper orchids that were, just in foliage and setting, seed ferns and a big diversity of ferns and sedges and lycopodium. And I mean, it was just a very lovely, and not a whole lot of invasives yet. We were kind of checking out, I'm sorry Nancy's not here to kind of talk with us, but I'll send you the photos.
Are the photos already uploaded to the Google Drive yet? Because that's a great.
No, I haven't done that. Yeah, that's what I need to do. Yeah. And
yeah, it's
and the other thing was I'm kind of, they were talking about how there's some part of the land is being sold or traded or exchanged or something, and there's going to be development very near there, which kind of concerned me. Like this area where there's a trailer park, and then I think you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know a little bit about that. Hopefully nothing. I mean, maybe we can look and see if anything's changed in the meantime. I think that land swap was set up for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think there's some old articles on Charlottesville Tomorrow about exactly what pieces are being swapped. I think the last time I looked into it, it wasn't anything terribly significant, but it may be worth revisiting that. I mean, it's too late to change anything now, but.
Well, I'm just concerned about it being opening up easy access because it sort of abuts this area where all these lady slippers and everything are located, and it would be, I think, from my understanding of it, it's very close to where people could start running trails in there, this sort of thing. So, but it's an amazing. So anyway, I had to leave before that. They were on their way down to this wetlands area, and I think Nancy went with them on that. She had to stop and do some emailing and stuff, and that's when I left. So, but she was going to catch up on this, so she may have the rest of the story, as they say, when they went down to the wetlands area.
Yeah, that'd be good to hear.
I wanted to do, but it was just too much time.
I'll see if I can pull up something on the GIS and see if I can figure out where that land swap is and mark it off, and unless someone else wants to do that. Kim, do you have access to that?
I'm sure that I do. I don't know a lot about the land swap. I haven't heard about that part of it. So I'm assuming that part is not included on the park planning maps that we're looking at.
That was my assumption too, that that had already been removed off, that it's not even
I
Yeah,
think a while ago, yeah.
right. So just as a follow-up, that was the second of a series of meetings, I guess, that we've been having with the parks chief of parks planning, and talking about invasives and trails and volunteer opportunities and just the general development and planning for Biscuit Run. So I think that's, it's good that we've had these opportunities to go out with them and talk on the ground, and we'll continue having those discussions.
Did you come out? Did you make it out there later? Because they were, I think.
No, I didn't make it to that one.
Okay.
I was there on the first visit with Christine and Tim and Christian.
So we had some committee suggestions that we made in the past. I want to make sure those are still on the radar. One of them is a controlled burn. We really like to get some fire on the ground. Obviously, there's some shrubbery that needs to be removed first. The other thing is, recommendation was to get to have direct communication with Blue Ridge Prism about management of invasive species. So I hope that that's happening. Have you heard anything else about any of those other?
There's a lot of stilt grass.
I haven't heard about fire, and I think I am a strong proponent of fire as a management tool. I think it could be challenging in that particular location, but and so no, I haven't heard any mention of that. But we have been working on the discussion about the invasive species management plan. So that's one of the requirements, actually, of DCR for the county to have a plan. And so Christine and I had a discussion with Rod Walker from the prison, who I think is on the call tonight, and I've been having ongoing discussions with Parks and Rec as well about how to move that forward and what that will look like, and so yeah, there's definite awareness of the need for that, and I think there will be progress moving it forward. It's just going to take some time.
And specifically, the recommendation about fire was for some of the grasslands that were there, to help restore those grasslands back. And I'm sure you remember there was a past history of doing burns out at Ivy Creek. So there's a precedent in the area for doing that sort of thing, even on a, usually the Department of Forestry,
We did that
work with them.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like there is going to be the opportunity for some of that input once that invasive plan begins to take form and they get to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyhow, I'm really glad, Peggy, that you were able to make it, and it sounds like a cool little spot. Christian was really excited to show it, and it's just on the west side of Biscuit Run, kind of between Old Lynchburg Road and their property. So it sounds like it was really cool. We also have Sugar Hollow on here, and we've got some communication from some concerned citizens about the state of affairs there, and maybe Kim, you could just talk a little bit about the limitations and some of the things you shared with me earlier.
Yeah, so I heard, and also Christine heard from Donna and Jim Bennett from the Friends of the Mormon River, and they also are residents out there at Sugar Hollow, and they had a lot of concerns about the level of visitation out there and the impacts from the visitation, human waste and pet waste and trampling of vegetation. And so they brought those concerns to us, and I in turn brought those concerns to Parks and Rec, who's been actively involved out there this summer. Parks and Rec has been out there doing, taking counts of visitors coming through, and also cooperating with residents out there who have organized trash cleanup and hauling bags of trash out there. But the county does not have jurisdiction. It's city-owned land, and the reservoir is owned by the Water and Sewer Authority. So, so it's a bit complex, but there is awareness at the highest levels that this is an issue and that it needs to be addressed, I think, with the city and the county and all of the involved parties. So, you know, we've communicated the concerns, and that's sort of where it is right now.
So full disclosure, before I say anything, I am a resident of Sugar Hollow. But long before as a resident of Sugar Hollow, it was an area of great concern to me as someone who used to run out there. And my perspective on this is that we're making a mistake by thinking of Sugar Hollow as just that area at the end that's around the reservoir where people are going to visit. What I've long wanted to see happen, and we've discussed this on Nextdoor quite a bit, is the need for a Greenway Plan for the whole road, starting at the country store and proceeding down that road, because of its, you know, there's a scenic river status there, and thinking about, and that whole road is really used as a greenway, a de facto greenway, because the amount of running and cycling traffic that goes down it. And some things that need to be looked at are things like traffic calming, and maybe even dispersal of some of the activities, so that it's not just creating some other places maybe that could be in partnership with Trout Unlimited or other organizations to maybe find some other places where there might be picnic areas or some other things that people could go to, so they don't see it as just a race down the road as fast as you can until you get to the reservoir, which is what's going on now. So that we really start to sort of create an attitude as a community that sort of think of the entire road as a greenway and not just a, as I said, you know, like a place for college students to race it, you know, go 90 miles per hour until they can get to the blue hole. So, but some other things too, and I don't know which one of these things are I don't know the status of the current plans, but a parking lot down at the bottom, before you even get up that hill at the bottom of the dam. And then I think even closure of that road to something like emergency vehicles only. And then some other trail to, I think part of it is that I found that people who tend to be the sort of people that litter and throw trash and cause lots of problems are also inherently lazy. So if you put a big hill that they have to walk up, or you put a longer trail, it kind of discourages them, and a lot of them sort of weed themselves out. It's gotten so bad that I've heard some people saying that they should close Blue Hole, which it's interesting. There's another locality that has another place that they also call Blue Hole. It's off of 33. But that locality, they've had a big fight in there. It's a county-owned property, and they're actually talking about giving the property away because it's become such a liability for the county in terms of like trash and the same issues actually that we're facing in terms of that. So it's a good lesson looking at what they're going through. I can't remember the locality, but it's off of 33, so you can sort of figure that out. But just looking at sort of what's been going on there and trying to not get to that point here in Albemarle County. But also Sugar Hollow is also, identified in the Biodiversity Action Plan, I believe, as one of our sites. And there are most Stevens had identified some things there. I've identified some rare plants there. It's definitely an interesting place. So.
Lonnie, I'm wondering, yeah, go ahead, Kate.
I can wait. I've always been I love the Greenway idea. I'd love to see a consideration in that plan of the water source itself. Coming from the Northeast, I've always been shocked at how reservoirs are treated down here, where what I'm used to up there, it would be simply it's more like a wilderness area where people are not necessarily invited to be. I do not think that would, shift automatically down here, but I don't necessarily think we consider that's not just a lake as much as we should. So just kind of throwing it out there in consideration of a Greenway plan that might be, what's at the end of the lake? Well, it's kind of an important water body that, people are swimming in it right now, but, or they were recently, but I think there's more that can be done specifically related to a water source versus a water body.
Yeah,
I'd like to agree with the concept of looking at it as from a bigger picture. The roads and the Greenway concept is all good and important. And also, like Kate said, the water itself. But when I spoke with Donna Bennett, who kind of brought this to some of our attention, she was concerned about some of the unique resources along the Mormons. And she apparently has done a lot of studies of aquatic invertebrates in the river. I'm not sure exactly at what points, but she mentioned the North and South Forks as being real important, and I guess being headquartered up or starting in Shenandoah National Park. And she mentioned a study that was done that she said she hasn't been able to find recently. And Lonnie, I was going to ask if you know about it or how to find it, because apparently you were involved with some of the discussions back in the mid-90s, I guess. She said that the Shenandoah National Park actually had done studies of land that was adjacent to the park in all of the counties along the Shenandoah Park, and that they had a 3-foot by 3-foot book, which tells me it must have had a lot of maps in it because this was the time before a lot of digitizing. And she said that the book was called The Related Land Study, like the land that's related to Shenandoah National Park that's near it, The Related Land Study of 1993. And she said it was actually mentioned in the 2010 Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan. And I'm just really curious if there's information in there about any unique resources. So Lonnie, does this ring any bells?
I don't know about that related land study. It'd be interesting to get our hands on that document.
Yeah.
I can say some of the things that I know about. There is Scentless Mock Orange that's on that road. There is Golden Club. I think Golden Club is listed as one of our locally rare plants. There's a phenomenal amount of pawpaw, like really old pawpaw trees along the road. This is a culturally significant plant. American hazelnut. A huge amount of spring ephemerals and I'm talking about the span of the road. Particularly starting after First Bridge is where you really start to see a lot of really interesting stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in that area. And for a while on Nextdoor, I was doing I kind of stopped once all this pandemic thing happened, but I was doing a plant of the month, where I would take a photograph of a wildflower in the area and post it on Nextdoor and talk about what it was and why it was important.
So Leah, I might have a lead on finding that. So the related land study, you were mentioning at first aquatic stuff. Is it specific to aquatic or is it covering all sorts of things? Do you know?
I don't know what's in it, what it really covers. All I know is that it was, they were apparently Shenandoah National Park hosted a number of town halls that were, I guess, inviting adjacent landowners to voluntarily protect their land so that it would, by having environmental protections on their land, it would help protect the park and or be a buffer for the park.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah, well, my friend Jim Childress, who some of you might know, his son is actually working in the park now. He's the aquatic biologist up there. So I could ask and see if he knows anything about it. I mean, he's new to the Park Service, but he's he works up there.
You could ask, yeah. Well, Donna said that she looked at the park's list of publications and it wasn't there. And I'm thinking, well, if it was 3-foot by 3-foot, then that's kind of hard to officially publish, perhaps. But apparently UVA was involved in this study as well. And I thought I would call over at, I don't know, see if I can find a research librarian at UVA, see if anybody has a copy of it anywhere. I don't know, but yeah, that'd be great if you could check.
Okay.
I do think in terms of recommendations, I would hope that if any landowner was interested in a conservation easement in that area, that would be a high priority. That would be ranked as high priority to the ACE committee. I certainly hope we've never rejected a conservation easement in that area. But maybe that's something we should do, is really try and get out and encourage, more people to put the land in conservation easement. There are some really large properties already that are already under easement, some really nice areas. But certainly getting more of those properties, particularly those that border the Shenandoah National Park, under easement, and letting landowners know that those are options and the benefits of doing that would be really maybe something we could do.
I was curious, maybe Kim, you would know, or somebody else, but I had heard sort of through the grapevine about, some of the problems up at Sugar Hollow, and was told that actually, that there was a serious problem where somebody was injured and an ambulance needed to get up there, and there are all the cars along the side of the road, and the ambulance was basically having to like bump into the cars to gain access, and that there was talk of actually redoing the park, unlike what Lonnie is suggesting, which is like get rid of the parking down there, make the parking further away, but actually instead, fixing up that parking lot at the end. Is there some group working on that? I know you said that the county doesn't have, this right to manage that. Do you know anything about whether the city is, is that, if they're the ones in control, are they considering paving that area?
I don't know the specifics of what they're considering, but I do know that there are some high-level discussions going on about the situation out there. I hadn't heard about the ambulance, but that's a great example of why this is escalated to a point where it really needs to be dealt with. But again, it's not necessarily going to be a decision made by the county. So I'm not privy to those discussions, but I do know that they're going on.
Yeah, I do know a little bit about some of the situations with the EMTs. But I certainly hope they're not planning on a parking lot up there. If anything, I would hope the county would push back on that as a violation of the water protection ordinance, because it would be within the water protection ordinance buffer. So I hope that we would have a strong pushback on that if it came to that. I would prefer they abandon that parking lot altogether. But I know that, for example, there were accidents at Blue Hole itself. There's a lot of people like tying ropes to a tree there, and like they keep removing the ropes, and people keep putting new rope swings, and people would get seriously injured. There may even been someone who died there. Eventually, the EMTs actually took a chainsaw up there and cut the tree down that people were swinging off of because it was such a big problem. But yeah, they've had a lot of issues with the emergency vehicles going up there.
People have likened the Sugar Hollow situation to that of White Oak Canyon, which is also has an access that's similarly tight. And some of the residents on that particular area, they've had some issues up there with emergency vehicles not being able to get to residents' addresses that were blocked by visitor vehicles. So I can't remember what the solution, or it's been years since I was involved in knowing what they did up there. But, this is definitely an issue.
Yeah, the county or it's, I guess, I'm not sure if it's the city or the county, but there used to be a house with a caretaker that's at the bottom of the dam. And so that property is still owned by, whether it's the county or the city, I don't know, or Ravenna Water and Sewer. And my understanding was that there was a plan for parking lot there where that house used to be.
That's what was definitely, at some point, that was absolutely true. I don't know if it still is.
I would hope if we could make that more of a plan for that to happen. That would be sort of my preference. My wife brought her phone over and she said it was Rockingham County was the one with the other Blue Hole, and they did make a decision to permanently close that swimming hole because of the liability issues. So that is an interesting story to look up, Rockingham County, and see what happened there. It's sort of a cautionary tale about what might be in store for us, because the number of people that go to Sugar Hollow is not going to go down. I mean, it's, as there are more and more university students, and the population of crozet grows, the demand to go to this area is going to increase. And if you don't solve it, it's going to get worse.
I'm wondering if it might be useful to have a letter that came from this committee to the RSWA, and then also CCing the Board of Supervisors with some of the things that you have brought up, Lonnie, about, and Kate and Leah, like protecting the water quality and the importance of that, and also some of the natural resources. And I don't know, is there somebody that could volunteer to do that with some, I feel like, more expertise than I have, living in close proximity and having, I don't know, what do you think, Lonnie? Would that be something that you could do?
I would certainly want other input besides me, because as I said, I am a resident of Sugar Hollow, so I don't want to make it appear that I'm, I have an agenda here, even though I guess in some ways I do.
Start something on Google Docs.
Yeah, start something on Google Docs. I mean, I'm willing to sort of, start something or throw out some of the things that I've said. We may invite Rod Walker, since he's here. He's also a resident of Sugar Hollow. He probably might have some thoughts as well. Maybe even invite.
It would be signed by all. It'd be signed by all of us, or the whole committee, not just you. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it would. I just want to be open. I just want to be open so everyone knows that I'm not. But certainly I would be glad to add my thoughts on there. And get some other.
That's also a really good bird,
May I just add a point or two?
Please do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, Lonnie, if you ever get into that Greenway discussion, let me know. I'd be happy to participate. But specifically with regard to what you've just been talking about, two things. One is, seems we were contacted, maybe 3 weeks ago, by a contractor who said he was preparing a bid to do a construction project. I'm assuming, but I don't know, that it was that parking lot at the dam that we're all talking about. And so apparently there is something going on. And if you guys aren't aware of what it is, I'd recommend that somebody make some phone calls into the proper places, because it sounds like there's something afoot.
I can confirm on that. It's that staff is working with partner organizations on the details, that has not been forgotten. So there is definitely something going on. People are putting potential things together, just to corroborate Rod's statement.
Yeah, and the only other thing I was going to say is, if it's ever relevant to you, when we talk about the blue hole, Maggie and I own a stretch of the South Fork of the Mormons just south of the blue hole. So we are one of the landowners of the South Fork of the Mormons. Probably we may be the only private one, for all I know. So in case that's ever relevant to any of this discussion.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Thank you for the input.
And if I may, I mean, from my own personal perspective, and since I also live there, I have my own little agenda. But yeah, my assumption is that if they actually put the parking lot where we're all assuming it's going, somewhere near that manager's house, and big if, they actually block off the road from the dam back to the current parking lot, I'm assuming that will actively discourage a lot of traffic back there, because it's now another mile or two that people have to hike in to get to where they're going. And so I personally would be a big fan of pushing that class of solution if people are really serious about doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So thank you, Rod, and thank you everybody for your input on this. I think we're gonna move on, and we'll definitely start that Google Doc letter. And Lonnie, if you could help get us started with that, that would be great. And you know, getting our thoughts down and having some input, I think would be a good idea. And I don't know if anybody there were any other visits to the important sites or landowner contact. I just want to throw that out there. Any that we don't know about or that you'd want to talk about? All right. And I just want to just briefly bring up the Avon Street grassland. Devin had, I think we had talked about this at our last meeting, that Devin had found some, what would you call what? Notable species there. And so Kim did a little bit of digging as well, just trying to get some information about the sidewalk, and Kim and I actually visited the site together just a couple weeks ago, and just thinking, you know, if there's some way that we can help to reduce the impact on the site, communicate with the planners that are involved with this. So we're still pushing on that, and hopefully we will be able to communicate with county planners, and at least, you know, maybe we can salvage some plants, or really push to reduce the impact on that site. So that's where we are with that. And we are just going to move on to new business. And, you know, on here, we're talking about like this coordination between Parks and Rec and looking at volunteers and invasives. And Kim has gotten some information about that, which is pretty, you know, exciting to think. Like, one thing you were telling me, Kim, that you actually have the booklet or access to the booklet that gives some guidance about who can apply pesticides and who cannot. And so, Rod, I know that we are planning to have a meeting later on that we can even discuss this even further. So, but it sounds like there are some possibilities for, you know, the Parks and Rec are open if we can organize something to come in and do some work. Is that correct, Kim?
Yeah, and I'll just, I can, if we have time, I'll just do a quick update on that. So yesterday, actually, I had a meeting with some of the leadership staff in Parks and Rec, and it's been a long time coming because we had an original discussion, and now this was a more detailed follow-up discussion. And just talking to them about the interest that the NHC has in working in county parks, because that's a theme that keeps coming up and it's in our work plan. And so I was just trying to, you know, make some connections and communicate with them about some of the things that have come up, you know, volunteer groups, pulling invasive species, and some of the planning issues we talked about earlier at Biscuit Run, and the trails management and trails planning, and then education projects, and also the recommendations that you all have thought very carefully about for both Dart and Tau and Biscuit Run. So just, you know, starting those conversations and keeping that going to help move some of these projects forward. And there is a lot of interest, and they're totally receptive to our ideas, and they're very open. So if, you know, if there are groups that want to come out, there's just certain guidelines. There are restrictions with respect to herbicides and who can apply herbicides, but they're really open to doing things like that, and, you know, maybe doing a bio blitz at Biscuit Run. And one interesting thing that Christine and I talked about earlier is, I guess for the education subcommittee, is Charlotte Humphreys Park, because they have money right now for doing a project there. And so they've done a few things. They have a very active CAC in that area, and they put in some park benches, but the next logical thing is doing a kiosk or, you know, some kind of education program out there. So that's an opportunity, I think, if the committee is interested. And yeah, like Christine said, they're really open to any other ideas we have. So we'll just work through those as they come up.
So one of our other suggestions for Biscuit Run was getting in touch with NRCS. They had offered, even though they usually work with private lenders, they have one of their biologists come out and look at, put out a plan for quail, because there had been reports of bobwhite quail in the area, and see if quail restoration was possible on that site. And since, I mean, that's something they'd be willing to do for free, and they're the experts, one of the experts in that. I mean, it'd be nice to take advantage of that, particularly in the planning phases before we get too involved in building a lot of stuff and changing the landscape too much.
Have you been in touch with the folks in the state government that deal with the Quail Initiative?
Not with the Quail Initiative directly, but I work closely with, but Corey and the other NRCS people are, they attend our monthly meetings at the Stormwater Conservation District. So I do talk to them quite a bit. Did you have a specific question about the program, or?
No, it's just if you're looking to reestablish quail, the state, as opposed to the NRCS, I believe has a Quail Initiative. That I'm not sure what the geography is. Yeah, I met with the folks there 6 years ago or so. It's been a while, but yeah, if you're not in touch with them, it would make sense to talk to them too.
Well, it's all connected. A lot of the way the funding works, I don't want to get into how the funding works, but a lot of the funding is federal money, even though it's applied at the state level. So I think, I'm guessing that any of the Quail Initiative things works highly with the NRCS partners. That's usually how that works. Even though the state, the state biologists and everything are involved in that program. But I mean, there are some, there's definitely a lot of money for private landowners. I mean, I'd like to get, see if we can get more private landowners enrolled in the bobwhite quail programs and the grassland programs in general. But it'd be nice, I mean, if we had the fact that we had an occurrence, an INAT of bobwhite quail in the area, it would be nice to make sure that we can keep that population there if they're still remaining.
This would be a perfect thing for the website, maybe, and a great little video about how wonderful the quail are. And you can turn that field that you've been mowing, that 10 acres that you mow 5 or 6 times a month, and you can turn it into a wonderful habitat for quail.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of those, I mean, some of those properties are just being baled for hay for the sole purpose of getting the land use tax break. But they don't, I think communication that's not necessary, that they can get that same tax break by enrolling in the NRCS program.
I think that would just be such a great campaign. So I'd like to put that on our list of campaigns, because I think that a lot of people don't know about it. And boy, it sure would be nice to change some of those lawns into some beautiful grasslands, quail habitat.
Well, you need to have at least 40 acres, but anyway, to really, for quail to come back. But they used to be out at Tufton and they just got mowed to. I'm still working on it, but it's frustrating.
You need little blue stem. If you don't have little blue stem, you're not going to have quail. And so, and if you don't have, and so you need either fire or something mimicking the presence of fire. But basically, it's fire. Fire is usually applied during the cool season, usually late winter, where it will kill fescue in the cool season grasses and favor the warm season grasses, which are what quail and a whole range of other species really need, or the warm season grasses.
I was on the board of Ivy Creek when we were doing those fires, and part of the reason for doing that was hopefully to get quail back, but I think we determined the fields just weren't large enough. But the fire, yeah, that timing is so perfect, so important, because you want the quail to have grass cover over the winter, and then you burn it in late winter, early March, so that you get the warm season grasses coming in. but we worked with you know, sowing all those native grasses at Ivy Creek that are still there, you know, but I'm not sure how they're managing anymore.
Yeah, and quail is sort of like a flagship species, but there's a whole long list of other species that are super important. And it's just, you know, quail are super cute. If you've never seen bobwhite quail, they're super cute. So they're great little flagship species, you know, whereas some of the other ones are a little bit more obscure. So it's a good one.
I've got a message from Carolyn just reminding us that she's got to go at 6:50. So just a heads up.
Yeah, thank you. And Lonnie, maybe if you have a good example of a place where the quail habitat has been developed in Albemarle County, where we could maybe showcase it, and we could continue that conversation. But I wanted to talk about these subcommittees. So I did get some thank you to Emily and Nancy and Michael actually got back to me and said that they wanted to participate in the education committee, education and outreach. And I don't know if there's anybody else who would like to join that committee, but also it seems to me that really having a subcommittee that deals with policy would be really important. And just wondering if any of you have interest in either chairing that or, well, we would need a chair. So, or anybody's interested in taking that one on.
So the policy subcommittee, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
Would you chair it?
And I'd be interested in being a member of the policy part.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So great. That sounds terrific. So what I would love to have happen in these committees is to pick another meeting every month where those subcommittees meet for an hour, really try to set some goals, like create like a little charter for your subcommittee, and then share those back. So if we could go ahead and do that for our October meeting, and I'll send out an email to the education and outreach, and we'll find a time that we can get together. And since we'll have to make that a public meeting, so I'll have to get to Carolyn about that. But I will very quickly, very soon get back to you guys, and we will try to get a date to meet. And Lonnie, that might be a little bit easier for you then. And then, does everybody agreeable in when you do meet is to create like a little charter? And I can send you an example of the subcommittee charters that we use in the SWAC committee, just to help you kind of have a template for that, and then perhaps set some goals, and then we can report back next time we meet. Does that sound okay with everybody? Does anybody have any feedback on that?
If you guys, when setting up these subcommittee meetings, I'm really very flexible. If you guys are available during the day to meet over like a lunchtime period, we can do that versus at nighttime. I just want to throw it out there just in case that's something you all would rather do. And if you just send me the dates that you're interested in, I can tell you whether or not I'm available or are available to have a Zoom webinar at that time.
Thanks, Carolyn. That's helpful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I have a question, which is, I mean, maybe some others will join, so we probably should plan for that. But if it's just Lonnie and Kate right now, do they need to have like an official meeting through Carolyn, since it's just two committee members meeting together?
Technically, my understanding for you, technically no. However, I think it would be good form for us to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if any of us decided, ooh, what you're talking about next month sounds interesting, it would preclude us from joining. But I just wanted to say, like, if you guys were just getting underway and hadn't had an official one, it's probably okay to meet anyway for first time.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, I think there's the spirit of FOIA. I think in the spirit of it, you know, I think it'd still be good to try and, you know, follow the rules, post it, and keep minutes and do all those things.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, exactly. And keeping minutes is important as well. And I think also just if possible to pick a day and a time that is just regular each month would also be helpful as well.
Um,
All right, terrific.
Kim,
So
could someone send out a what are those, doodle poll for people that were interested? Or
Well, I think right now, is it just you and Kate?
yeah, sure. I guess me and Kate will just decide.
Yeah. If you can join us, great, but we get to choose.
Sure.
yeah, that sounds great. And you can just let us know. How's that sound?
Yeah.
That sounds good. We'll do that.
And well, I'm really glad, I'm really excited about these subcommittees. I think it'll give us a little bit more time, structured time to make progress. And so, hooray. I just want to, actually, Leah had emailed me earlier today, and which is really exciting. She had talked to somebody, ecologist, related to the corridors, wildlife corridors program. Leah, do you mind just sharing some of your news? And you had like a little bit of a proposal for a presentation, which I think would be really exciting.
Yes. Well, I've been making some calls, just volunteering to help with the Virginia Safe Wildlife Corridor Collaborative. And they're, like all organizations, trying to figure out who can work on their subgroups, their subcommittees. But anyway, there's a number of ecologists at the Smithsonian Conservation Research Institute, which is up in Front Royal. And one of them all of them have, well, several of them that I've talked to have experience with mapping wildlife or mapping wildlife crashes or interactions, like with cars, so road crash statistics. But this guy was pretty incredible. It turns out he's from Albemarle County. He was raised just north of Ivy, and his father, I guess, just recently moved to Crozet. But anyway, he has done a lot of wildlife surveying. He's mapped wildlife habitats. And particularly, I was really interested in learning more about spatial analysis that he's done for identifying wildlife corridors. He's been working with the World Wildlife Fund down in Myanmar. And I guess World Wildlife Fund was, as I understand it, they were working to clear the path, working with all the government agencies to help facilitate a lot of research that was being done. And in Myanmar, this particular guy, Grant Conant, he worked with a lot of different species, so is pretty diversified in figuring out the potentials for wildlife movement. And so one example of something really unusual, I guess, that he did was he actually looked at salamander migration, or corridors for salamanders. And they did some research and figured out that there were certain salamander populations at point A, and then there are other ones at point C. And then they took skin swabs and did genetic analysis to find out how related those species were. And then they went back and looked at other points between A and C to look at the genetic mapping to identify which ways the salamanders were migrating. And it turns out it was not at all along riverine corridors or moist habitats like they thought. They actually figured out that the populations generally moved through really dry environments to get to their final destination, at least the final, at that snapshot in time. So anyway, I asked him if he would I told him about our committee, and he's going to check with his dad. His dad is an avid birder, and he might be interested in serving on the committee. So we have these interactive discussions. And anyway, I asked Grant if he would be willing to do some kind of a presentation for our group at some point related to spatial analysis of wildlife corridors or whatever else the committee would be interested in. And this, of course, would tie to our number 9 of the work plan in terms of goals, which is minimizing and reducing habitat fragmentation, maintaining existing habitat connectivity, and establishing connectivity as appropriate. And of course, you can't do that if you don't know where the corridors are.
Yeah. That sounds great, Leah. And I think it would be wonderful to have a presentation. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Does that sound like an interesting, useful thing to have?
Wildlife corridor information, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds great. And it has reminded me that I had promised to send out a link with information about Misty Booz from Wild Virginia and Bridget Donaldson, who works for the Virginia Transportation Research Council, also do work on this topic. I think Bridget came, gosh, I think before I joined the committee, so a couple of years ago maybe. But she's the one who installed a lot of the cameras out on 64 going west and has done a lot of research on the animal crossings there and was instrumental in getting those fences installed along portions of 64 to funnel the animals to certain already existing bridge underpasses and things like that. So there was a webinar that they gave to the Virginia Master Naturalist. As far as I can tell, it's just an open link. And I will send an email for those who are interested in listening to their results.
Yeah, please send that out. That sounds great. Yeah, so I would say, Leah, please do reach out, and we'd love to hear from him. And also, thank you so much for promoting more members. And so we all need to be doing that, and because we definitely need to have more members. So thank you so much. So I say bring them on. Well, you guys, we are just about, we just have 4 minutes left. Is there anybody has anything else that they'd want to talk about or bring forward before we close up?
I'll just make a quick mention, since we're talking about wildlife corridors, that I drove over Polo Grounds Road, and I don't know if you all have seen that those salamander crossings were implemented, or they're installed. So you can go and check it out and drive over it and, you know, pull off safely and take a look. It's kind of cool. I think it's neat. I'm curious to see how well they work.
Yeah, so am I. I live up this way, and yeah, I drive over them often now. It's really fun it was fun to see them being put into place, and the kids got really excited, like, oh, look, there's the tunnels. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I think, you know, I'm part of a group of people that Devin sort of has gathered up over the years who are interested in this. And I think, you know, the intent is to not stop the monitoring, you know, just because the tunnels got put in, you know, so hopefully we'll have some data to share, you know, after the migration this year to just see how well they're working.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I have high hopes. You know, we were out there years and years and years helping them across the road also. So I have high hope it'll work. In driving past there, when the development was when all the trees were first cut, I was shocked by the amount of tree cover that was removed compared to what I thought was in the plan. So I sure hope that their population is still surviving there.
Yeah, that was really devastating. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks to everybody.
Good
We
to
are
see you
going
all.
to close up here. Excited for our subcommittee meetings. I'm going to send out those Google Docs that we can get started on feedback for the website and our letter to the RSWA. And I want to also really thank Rod for joining us. And you've been joining all our meetings. It's really great to have you participate and give your feedback.
Honorary member.
Yeah, happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. We invite you to become a member. Yeah.
Sorry, my plate is overflowing already.
I can only imagine. I'm sure it is. Yeah, but thank you for joining. And just wish you guys a really great rest of the month. And thank you, Carolyn, for being our host. And you guys all have a great rest of your evening.
All right.
Good to see you all.
Yeah, nice to see everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Good night.